What's up, everybody? This is Caleb with Gamer Faith, and we're here doing another Bible study hangout. And joining me is little brother Sam.
Oh, yeah.
And if you get tired of looking at us, we have another special guest I'm super excited to introduce to you. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi guys, I'm Kelly. I'm from Christian Girl Vlogs here on YouTube. Hi Mom. Sorry, thank you. Getting some water. Yeah, I have a channel here, so if you guys want to check it out later, go right ahead. So thank you for having me, Caleb, and nice to meet you, Sam.
Yeah. And I'm gonna go ahead and forgive you for interrupting me in my last video, Kelly, so we can move past that. You know, you kind of dropped in.
Tried, but you know, I had to.
Because you just nonstop run your mouth.
Yeah, I do just run my mouth. You know it, Sam. Okay. All right. So, what are we talking about today, Kelly?
We are talking about everything money related and tithing and how that comes in with God and what God has to say about it and kind of like his expectations for us and how to handle money in our lives.
Yeah. And when Kelly first, I don't know what it is. I'll admit this here myself. So when we were talking about doing this and doing a Bible study hangout, and I asked her what subject she wanted to talk about, I was surprised by this subject choice. It just caught me off guard. And there's something about giving and money or like blessings in money that some of us throw red flags up when that subject comes up. But she told me about this book she was reading, and I found a sermon series on this and started looking into it myself. And it's called The Blessed Life, and what's his name? Robert Morris. And I was really impressed and really liked this. And I think that this is a really important subject to talk about because it goes a lot deeper than just your bank account and money and stuff. Giving is really like a huge indication of where your heart is at. And I think that this subject is just absolutely important for living a successful, joyful, happy life in the right place with God. So I'm excited to talk about this. But so you have anything else to say before we kind of dive in, Kelly?
Yeah, just so you guys can have like a visual, the book that he's talking about, the book that I was going crazy over, it's like this one. It was given to me by my church, and I never really thought about money, you know, and I didn't really care about it. I had no idea of how important it was as a Christian to understand this concept, and that God really does want us to. Something that I wrote down from the book that they even talk about in the beginning is that they say that there are over 500 verses in the Bible talking about prayer and about 500 verses talking about faith, but there are more than 2,000 verses talking about money and possessions. So God really does want us to be understanding not only the role of money in our lives, but how to handle it. And I think it's so important that as Christians, everyone should understand this and know this. So it's one of the reasons why I brought it up with you, because I thought it would be a really great opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. And as a child, not to go off in too big of a tangent here, but when I was little, my dad talked to me as a kid and told me that, you know, at one point in his life when he was a young adult and he had just had, I think, our older brother's Josh, so he's sort of a new parent, and he was having all sorts of financial trouble, but at this time God was working on his heart and showing him that, you know, tithing and giving is an issue of the heart and it's an issue of faith. And he was in a tight place with medical bills, I believe it was, but he decided, even though he was in that hard place, instead of giving less, trying back, that he was going to start giving more to God and giving more money to, you know, add to the kingdom. And he says God totally met all of his needs in that. Everything was met and more, and he's been blessed beyond measure. And my entire life, you have those people that you see that are always counting their blessings, and those people who always seem to be struggling. And I've known my dad to always be thankful, always be provided for, and he, since that point in time, has always made tithing and giving an opportunity. So really, this is an option, and the Bible makes it very clear that God, blesses us and takes care of us for having faith in this. So this is an opportunity for you to help you develop your giving heart, and for you to get blessing. And so that's always stuck with me, and I've implemented it into my life, and God has always met my needs. And
I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
I've seen the two polar worlds between like tithing and having a heart for God, and then like struggling and saying you don't have enough for God, and just seeing what difference it makes in families' lives and in their relationships together and their relationships with God, and just how it all works.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, great topic. So I have a verse here, Luke 6:37-38, and this is English Standard Version. It says, "Judge not, and you will not be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you." So the give, and it will be given, and the measure given back to you there, I think, is an important area to touch on. And I think it's important to note before we dive real deep into this that there's a couple different ways you can give. So when we talk about giving, we're not talking about giving so we can get back. That's not the heart attitude. God loves a joyful giver, and we're giving to the kingdom for the sake of giving because our hearts are attached and care about God's kingdom and the things that matter to him, and how he's working in our heart makes us want to give. And that's the type of giving where blessings come pouring back. So if you give to get, what you're going to get back from that is not, probably the same as when you're giving because you want to give, and that's where your heart is at.
Exactly like that, saying that anything that you give to God, you're not losing it. It's not waste. It's not going into nothing. It's always an investment. And I love that you brought up the kingdom, because it's so true. Because whether it's money or time, whatever it is that you give to God or to give to others because of God, it's always an investment in other lives and bringing brothers and sisters closer to God. So it's never something that's a waste. And
Right.
it definitely comes into finance. Sorry, Sam.
Oh, he was just agreeing, saying,
Yeah.
right, yeah. But yeah, definitely that investment, and it's a huge blessing to see, like, we as small people compared to like a mighty awesome God. It's really cool and a really awesome opportunity to see when our giving, when God can use our giving, he like lets us be a part of this. And we'll talk about that a little more later. It's not like God needs us, but God lets us, and it's something that benefits our hearts. And it's so cool to see, this money that could have been used for something useless or could just be sitting there in your bank account. It's cool to see that transformed into changed lives and hearts that are growing, and lives saved in more than one way. And yeah, it's really awesome. So giving is a blessing. It's not something that's like a drag or a bummer. It's like
it was basically created to help us out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The author in the book, he was really tested in this, and where God kept pushing him to really give. And then we think about giving like, oh, I don't want to give this a little bit of money. But with him, when he experienced this, God was telling him to, sell, I think was like his house, his cars. And it was really kind of extreme and hard for him to do. But what he was really talking about in the midst of this experience was that he kept thinking at times that can we really outgive God? And at one point he thought like, God, I've given everything away. You can't possibly meet my needs now. And God would always surprise him every single time. And I think no matter what scale we're looking at, even a smaller scale, like you said, God will always provide and surprise you when you're faithful to him, because he's always going to be faithful to us. So I think it's really cool to see that and to experience that.
Yeah, and in on that line of thinking, like, we can't outgive God in what he gives us in our like personal lives with our needs and stuff, first off, and that's a great point. But he has already, just through grace and salvation in Jesus Christ, he has already given like more than we can't, there's not even a percentage that we can come close to meeting what he's given for us. So it makes no sense to be put out or like upset or have a grudge about giving to God when he asks this much from us and he's already blessed us with new lives.
And ultimately, like, what we have, he's granted it to us and given it to us already. So it's like,
right.
It's kind of a circle.
It's a return thing, right? Is that what you're trying to say, Sam? Like, when the things that we have is God's, so then we're really kind of almost like returning a little bit to him.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I agree. Yes, that's exactly the mentality I think we need to keep, is this being grateful for it. And when we're giving, we're not giving, we're returning, and that way you'll kind of understand it better when you say it that way. So that was a really good point.
Yes, very good. Okay, and so yeah, with that, he asked in the sermon series a question, and I highly recommend, if you go on YouTube, search The Blessed Life, you can find this. So I highly recommend checking out that. If you want more detail, there's like a lot more there than we're gonna have time to dive into today. But he asks the question, does the church want your wallet? And then he kind of changes that to, does God want your wallet? That's a weird way to say that, but he says that God does want your wallet, and here's why. If you look at Matthew 6:21, this is English Standard Version, it says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be." So if your treasure's in your bank account, then your heart is in your bank account. If if your treasure is in God, then you're going to put your money in God too. That's what you're going to care about. So yes, he's after your wallet because he's after your heart. And that wallet can be a blockade that blocks our hearts from being focused on God. So it is really important for us to be willing and giving like that. Yeah. So how are you feeling about this? So we'll be honest with you, a little action here going to happen in here. So our computer is low on health right now. You know your computer better than me. Do we need to find a new location?
A power source as soon as possible would be ideal.
Okay. All right. So
I wish our yellow box worked.
Yeah. Do you know where that is?
Isn't that in your car?
Is it in the car? Well, that's not an option anyway. So, okay. All right, Kelly. So you can go ahead and talk, and we're going to be frantically moving around in the background looking for a location to charge, okay?
That's fine. Good luck, you guys. Hope you find it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. So I actually really want to go over a little bit of the background of giving and why God wants us to do this, what the heart is, and how that has progressed over time, because I really didn't know that either. So I did a little studying, a little digging in to find out. And they call tithing the principle of the first fruits, the principle of the firstborn. And that's kind of how it's known throughout the Bible, and it's always referring to the same principle. So in Exodus 13:2, it is said, "Consecrate to me all the firstborn, whatever opened the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and beast, it is mine." So God really says, give to me all the firstborn, whatever comes from womb or from children, and whether that's women or animals, that's all mine. The first is mine. And he says, I think, like 16 times I don't know if it's in this chapter or throughout the Bible, but he really hits this point that the first belongs to him. And I think this is really important to understand because every time one of your livestocks, if you were living in that era, every time your livestock had a baby, you had to deliver it to God. You had to present it to God before you knew if your lamb would have any more. I don't know if it's lamb or sheep. If it would have any more, before you could know for sure there would be more coming your way, you had to take that first and give to God. So there was no safety back then in terms of like waiting for more. God wanted your first one. He wanted you to trust him, that you would present that to him and trust that he was going to bless you, take care of your needs, and provide for you. So that's where that heart was, even in the beginning, in that time period. And I think that kind of like went over time. Nowadays it's the same thing, but now it's more with the paycheck. You know, when you first receive your paycheck, the first thing you should do before you pay your bills, I think the same principle applies, is giving that first to God, trusting that he will meet your needs elsewhere. So, oh my God, is that a cat? Sorry.
Sorry. Apologies.
He likes to torture that cat. That is Zelda.
She loves it.
But we have moved locations, so we're sitting on the floor now. Congratulations, Kelly, on being able to say all that with like the most distracting background business going on there. But
it's really hard to look at the screen but not look at you guys, because I'm like,
yeah,
I don't want to pay attention to that.
Okay, yeah, exactly. We're really professional over here, so okay.
Now Caleb and I are nice and close.
Yeah, we're nice and.
I don't know if you guys heard me, but I was giving kind of an overview a little bit on the background of where this principle started, you know, where people were expected to sacrifice the firstborn of an animal to God, and before they would have any more, they would trust that God would provide. So if they had, I don't know if you call it, like, a lamb's the baby, right? So if there was a lamb, you would sacrifice the lamb before you knew if there was going to be any more. And that was a way of trusting God that he would provide afterwards. So that was how it began back then. And that kind of continued as the principle with God, where he wants your first.
Yeah, it's an act of faith to give your first, trusting that he's going to provide and that he can take care of you, and that like this doesn't matter that it's my first. Like I trust you with this. Mm-hmm. So it's building that relationship with them, and that's key.
Yeah, and in the series we watched, he kind of words it. He says, "Who are you going to thank, or who are you going to worship with your money when you first get paid, with your wallet?" So he uses an example of like how many people get paid once a week or twice a week, and then when you get paid, who are you going to worship with that? And
Visa?
Yeah. Are you gonna worship, Visa, like paying off your bills? Are you gonna worship your bills? And or with the first fruit of that money, are you going to worship God? And he brings up the point that only one person, Visa can't bless you back. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's really important to keep that in perspective and helpful, I believe. So
it's absolutely. The idea of almost keeping God first in everything. So not just trusting him first emotionally and spiritually, but also bringing him over to the financial part, like trusting him financially and putting him first when it comes to your financials, keeping him really as the first in your life across all areas, not just some and not others,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I have 4 points here about dealing with. So if you're like, how can I have a more giving heart? And you're kind of wondering that and you're watching, I have 4 bullet points here. Kelly, dive in wherever you want, or where you have a Bible verse or something, throw it on in there. But I'll go ahead and start. The first point that I have here with helping your heart to become more giving is to deal with a selfish heart. And I guess you need to ask the question, and we kind of touched on this a second ago, but why did God create giving? And like I said before, does God need your money? do you think he needs? Because a lot of people think tithing and giving is, because God needs that money to support the church or something like that. God can provide in any way that he wants, but I think it's an awesome opportunity to let us be a part of that and for our hearts. So the point I have here is I think that giving is created for our sakes and in order to help us overcome selfishness. So, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, just one point to make in there. For some time, I went to a church that I don't know if there's that many out there, but this church was taking things to a whole other level where to get prayer, I would have to kind of provide money for it. So if one of you guys are going to a church where you maybe abusing that a little bit, it's important to be spiritually led. So like knowing your commitment with God and not letting that be corrupted. So it's really, don't be afraid of or shutting down the whole idea of being committed to God financially just because things may be a little bit confusing in terms of how much the church might be asking for. It's really a personal commitment that you have with God.
Okay. So you're kind of saying that the leadership, or maybe it got a little choppy there with our signal. So you were saying that the idea of giving can be abused. Is that kind of what
yeah, when you're in a church, and I don't want to go into this too much, but like my church, it was a point where like if you want any prayer, any blessing, or have someone talk to you, and everything was kind of like financially, you had to pay for it. You had to pay like this amount if you wanted to get prayed on. That I think so many people have had experiences with that. Like I have family and friends who've had experiences with that, and because of that, they stopped believing that money was an important part with God personally as a commitment. So I don't want that to be people's perspective on that.
That's I'm actually really glad that you brought that up, because I think a lot of people probably have similar experiences or some sort of experience along those same lines, and that might be a reason why some of us are so like prone to throw up these red flags, because it's like they're abusing my money, I'm getting taken advantage of, blah blah blah. Definitely do pray and see where God what he puts on your heart. And I do think tithing is essential and important, and giving. And you look like you're about to burst something out. What do you got to say?
It's kind of human nature in a way. Like sometimes we're told to do something, like told to give this money, and we instantly have this rebellious nature about that. And so part of like softening your heart is getting rid of that nature and like focusing on what God wants, asking him what he wants you to do, and listening.
Yeah. And so I have a kind of a thought on that. If you're struggling with just like over anxiety about if what you're giving is being abused, or like if you feel like you can't give because you don't know if that money is going to be used in the right way, this is a personal thought that I've held on to. And yeah, you do use your common sense. Don't give money to something that's obviously going to be used for the wrong reason. But I personally think like if you give money out of the goodness of your heart, and you're doing it for the sake of the gospel, and people take advantage of that's not your fault. You're still going to be blessed for giving. You still gave, you still did what you were supposed to, and God's still going to bless you for that giving. And in a lot of ways, you still gave to God. Like he still takes that and appreciates that. If they abuse that, God's going to deal with them on that, not you. So I really believe that when you are mistreated for the sake of the gospel, that you're blessed. You're blessed for being for doing that anyways. So try not to panic or overthink. Like if you all signs indicate and you've prayed about it and you think it's okay to give, don't worry so much about that or try to overthink that. That's not your job. Your job is to trust God and deal with your heart. And I think that it's more dangerous to have the type of heart that like is hardened to giving so much that you try to judge and figure everything out like that than it is.
Because then you're going to stress yourself out and just not give anything at all and lay on the couch.
Yeah, and if somebody does need something, you assume they're going to misuse it and you don't give, then that's on you. Kind of the opposite end of that scenario. So that's how I've kind of always looked at it. But yeah. You have anything else to add to that, Kelly?
Yeah, that was good.
Should I move?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You covered all the points. So I'm like, yes.
Okay, so the next bullet point I have on here. Huh? You have something to add, or
point 2 in our 4.
Point 2, yes, point 2.
Hand signals.
Yeah, I thought you were like peace, but so
shout out to Germany, by the way.
Yeah, shout out to Germany. We got a lot of action going on in the comments here in the chat. So Germany, way to represent. Okay. And so the next one is dealing with a grieving heart. So what do I mean by this? So I have a verse here, Psalm 24:1, English Standard Version, a psalm of David. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein. Too bad I don't have my wallet over here. I could do the little demonstration he did. Oh gosh. Just zooming out. Okay. We're going to put on, it's not going to be as good because you're going to be knowing we're acting right now, but okay. So do you remember how this went?
No.
Okay. So okay, well, this is your wallet. So in the thing, he says that he was worried about going out to lunch afterwards, and he was kind of thinking about it, and that he didn't know how he was going to pay for that lunch. And I don't know how I'm going to pay for that lunch now. So Sam, okay, wow, this is a big lunch, but so
it's like the whole Taco Bell menu.
So in the actual video, like a guy gets up out of the audience and walks up when he says he was worried about paying and hands him
no hesitation,
$100. No hesitation, just hands him $100 and goes sits back down. And he says that, there was no hesitation. He points that out and he says, do you know why he had no hesitation? And he said, it's because I gave him that $100 before the sermon started, because I told him this demonstration was going to happen. And he points out the fact that, he's not grieving about giving that $100 to him because why? Because it's not his. The guy who got up out of the audience, it wasn't his $100 to begin with. He was just giving it back because he was asked to.
Return mentality, right? That you don't become so attached to money because that was given by someone else and you had to return it eventually, a part of it. Right.
Exactly.
Just like we were talking about earlier, that whole like God gives us all that we have, so we're just kind of returning a little bit.
Exactly.
He's given us.
And the point he is making there is that we grieve about giving money and we get upset and we give money and then say something happens to the car or something like that, and then we are like, upset, like, why did I give that money? The reason we have that mentality is because we think that the money is ours. But it's not ours. It's all God's. So there's no reason to grieve about giving or handing it out because we're just giving back something that's already his, that was lent to us. We're just giving it back.
Another way to combat like grieving about it would be taking into consideration that what we're giving back to God can do amazing things. Like we're giving this 10% or whatever we're giving to God, and he's going to use it for the greatest way possible. So it's like we're giving this little bit and it's going to do so much. It's going to do whatever God's plan is for it, and that's really exciting.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to be sad about God doing great things.
Right. And it's so easy in a lot of sense. Like it's such an easy thing to do. It's so hard within our hearts. But once you get that mentality, like it's such a simple way to invest into into the kingdom, and just get that blessing back. Sam's letting the cats in from outside. They got locked out there, but they'll be clawing to get back out soon. But okay, so anybody have anything else to add to that before I move on to the next bullet point?
No.
No. Okay. And once again, if you are struggling with like a grieving spirit about giving, remember that like Kelly said, we can't outgive God. So this is like a cat show Bible study combination.
How many do you have? How many cats do you have?
3.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, we are crazy cat people.
Cat love in there.
Yeah, definitely, and fur and everything that we eat in, but they're all long haired.
I thought that was shiny on my face.
But, okay, so number 3, is this number 3? Did I forget to? Yeah.
Nope.
Yep, number 3 now.
Number 3, develop a generous heart. So I work with kids. Some of you may have known that.
It's the greatest job ever.
Yeah, I have a pretty legit job working with little people. But if you have kids or you know kids,
Or you are a kid,
then oh snap! Do you have little sisters or brothers, Kelly?
I have a little brother, but it's like a little brother. He's 16 and he was like taller than me, so people think I'm the little sister, and I feel like the little sister. So it's that life struggle, Yeah.
So it's funny you bring that up. Is like everybody's been asking lately since Sam's out here visiting.
And this is the 4th time I've come out to visit Caleb in Michigan.
Yeah, everybody's asking which one of us is the older sibling, and it's me, and it's not by a little bit; it's by 8 years. So like, but everybody's always like, "What? I thought he was the older one." I don't know, but anyways,
I get the feeling. We're like 5 years apart, so I understand the difficulty.
Yeah, but all right, where was I here? Okay, yeah, kids. That's right. So what happens? The kid's playing with something over here, playing with a certain toy, and then another kid walks in the room and picks up something, sort of off in a different area, but over here. You know what's going to happen? Any ideas here? The common thing is the kid that was there first runs over and says, I was playing with that. That's mine. Wait, I was using that. And so they want, they're playing with this ball, but as soon as somebody comes over here and starts playing with the Frisbee, it's like, oh, wait. I needed the Frisbee. So the kid goes and picks something else up, and the kid will run over and be like, oh, wait. I was playing with that too. Like, they have this sense of ownership, and it's cute when it's a little kid, but at some point with us, so many of us will have money just sitting there, or things just sitting there, and instead of giving, and instead of sharing, instead of being generous, it's this attitude of wait, that's mine. I need that too.
It's really funny that you bring this up, because I actually studied child development. So I studied the development of kids as they're growing up, and we studied this. This is an actual thing where children go through, especially infants, go through a stage when one of the first things they learn verbally is to say possession. So mine is the first thing they learn to say. And it just kind of really shows how, like, naturally, by our human nature, we tend to lean towards being more selfish. And that's something that sometimes we struggle with as we grow up. Obviously, we learn to share as we get a little bit older, and that's something we have to put effort into doing. But that's the thing that you're bringing up, that it takes more effort for us to learn how to share and to give than it is for us as to just naturally want to to keep it to ourselves. That's like our natural, how can I say this, like our natural instinct is to keep it. So we always have to put work into teaching and maintaining this mindset of giving and sharing our things.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Little
so.
feel from the child development student. So.
Oh yeah, all about that.
Those are my favorite types of classes. I'm getting a little echo action. Are you guys in the chat? Is there anyone? Do you have the volume coming out of your speakers, Kelly?
I do. Do you want me to get headphones? Is that how you fix that?
That will probably help, or turn it down.
Okay, hold on a second.
Sweet chalkboard action. Do you think that chalkboard's in her room? Or does she have like a set? Ooh. Probably room. Do you have a chalkboard in your room?
That's my wall. I painted it last summer.
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah, that was one way to get a chalkboard in my room.
Oh, I think that's better. Perfect. Thank you. Ah, sweet relief.
Yeah,
okay.
You guys should have told me this. I would have fixed it for you. Sorry.
It was fine the whole time. It just started about.
Oh, okay.
Sounds like a bird.
But it did sound like a really loud bird for. I don't know. All right. So, do you have any other ideas about developing a generous heart?
I don't think so.
Okay. Are you sure? Because this bullet point was from you when we were putting this outline.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I was very tired last night when I made this, but that makes sense. Okay. So it's kind of like the more that you put your trust in God and the more you develop a relationship with him, the more you become like him.
Mm-hmm.
And God is a generous person at his heart. So the more we become like him, the more we'll become generous.
I agree. There's definitely truth to that. I think that the more you have a relationship with God, the more you tend to have a heart like God, and like, which is what you're saying, and you tend to kind of see the need of people, and in giving becomes a thing that you desire to do. Like now it has become a habit for me that when I first get any amount of money, no matter how little, the first thing I want to do is give my share to whatever I'm doing. So just because I became passionate about the things that I know move God's heart. So I think as you move closer to God, you definitely start having that change in your heart, and it changes how you feel about giving in general.
Yeah.
Also, like, and God is generous, and like you're saying, as your heart moves to be closer to his heart, you become more generous. And you use the phrase like, or how did you put it exactly? Like the things that move God's heart.
Mm-hmm.
And as we grow closer to God and become more like him, also the things that move his heart start to move our heart.
Yes.
And that makes giving all the more, because you care, because this is the stuff you care about. This is where you want to invest in, because these things move you. And so if you're having trouble being generous, build that relationship with God up and keep diving into that. And I mean, we could say that for pretty much every single subject on here. You want to fix problems, fix your heart. You want to fix your heart, focus on God, and build that relationship and keep growing in him, because that's the way to do it.
A really great visual just to put in there, something that someone told me once, is that imagine that one day when you're going to heaven, you get to walk past every single life that you somehow contributed to help bring like a brother or sister to heaven. So like that money that you gave maybe on one time at a Sunday morning, paid for a pastor to go to a certain region somewhere in the world where a person got to know God, and now you can meet this brother and sister, or know that this brother and sister is going to heaven with you. So it's like everything that you give really does have enormous impact that we don't even know. We have no idea how it's being used or impacted in people's lives. So really it's an investment in the kingdom and bringing brothers and sisters with you into heaven. So that's a good way to imagine it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is a really good
real
way.
happy
Thank you.
thought. I like
That
it.
is a happy thought.
It's
Thank you.
inspiring.
Thank you for sharing.
Happy thought.
A happy thought. We like happy thoughts around here. So, and if you're like wondering in any point in this, I think we kind of mentioned this before, but don't ever hesitate to ask God if there's confusion about giving or generosity.
Yes.
And never be afraid to ask God, but also be ready to embrace that answer, because it might hurt a bit, it might sting a bit at first when he asks you to, you know, do a certain thing, and you may be confused about it and stuff like that. But that, once again, that's an indication of where your heart is, and is there a string from your heart to your wallet, you know. And so, yeah, don't be afraid to ask, but also be ready to get that answer.
Oh, that was great. That's a really good point.
And I'm on to my last bullet point for this, for giving in general. Whoa. And that's developing a grateful heart. And we've talked about this already too a little bit, but it's just like wrong backwards thinking to think that we're somehow being wronged by being asked to give, because we've been given so much we can't even comprehend it. But yet sometimes we get this hardened heart where we don't want to give anything back. And just developing that sense of gratitude for everything that you have, you'll really start to see how rich you really are, and how you can only give a little, and that's a blessing to you. So anything to add to that bullet point? No?
Go on.
Go on. Okay. And another thing to do is, like, when you're first saved, a lot of times that's huge on your mind. That gift from God is the front of your mind. You never want to get over that. You never want to get over that gift. You never want to forget that gift, because
It's the ultimate gift.
it's the ultimate gift, and you've been given life, and
We're nothing without it.
yeah, exactly. We have nothing without God. And if you lose track of that, then you're going to rob yourself of joy, because
Right.
you're not going to see the blessings in your life, and you're not going to want to give, because you're going to lose track of what's been given to you. So never get over being saved. Never lose track of that.
You're touching on the fact that, you know, there's blessings that come from giving, and just to throw a little verse in there, in Romans 11:16, it said that, for if the first fruit is holy, the lump is also holy, and if the root is holy, so are the branches. So it's like, once you do give to God, that first, when you acknowledge God, like, thank you for saving me, I trust you completely, you're first in my life, here, take this back, thank you for everything you've given me. When you give to God, that's kind of what you're declaring every single time. And God blesses everything else that you have. So everything becomes blessed. And he continues to give you more and more and more over time, because he's trusting you that you can handle more. So, you know, once you give, you definitely gain blessings back in many ways, not just financially. I think emotionally and spiritually, God starts opening all kinds of doors in our lives. So.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the biggest driving points. Like, I would like you, the viewer, to get, or to sink in, is that you need to change your perception on giving if you view that as something that is like something that you lose something, because really it's an opportunity to gain so much. It's a gift. Giving to us is a gift and a blessing. And you need to put that in perspective and have the faith to believe and understand that, and you won't be disappointed if you start giving for the sake of giving out of love. I can promise you, you will not be disappointed by the blessing that comes back from that. Like Kelly said, it's not like, I'm not saying you're going to win the lottery or something. Like, it's not just a financial
No.
thing. It's actually, in a lot of ways, it's better than that, because of the gift you get back in your heart, and blessings and other sorts of ways, and the joy you get from changing your heart from that hardened state.
Yeah, and through changing your heart, your wallet can transform from a barricade between you and God to an open door to a relationship and blessing.
Exactly. Yep. So yeah. So also, okay, transitioning into tithing more. The end part of my notes here is more specifically about tithing. And we can still talk about whatever, but that's just how my notes are set up. But in that sermon series, he brings up the point, do you believe that you can do more with 90% of your earnings and the blessing of God with you, or without God's blessing and 100% of your earnings? When we think about it that way,
that's a good.
It's like,
good one.
Yeah, it's like an obvious answer there when you think about it like that. So yeah, I believe in a lot of ways, if you're not making a point to tithe and keeping faithful in that, the money's going to come out of your bank account one way or another. It's better to give it to God and his purposes and have that blessing. Just from my personal experience, that's what I have found. Oh, hey, Jeremiah, what's up? One of our oldest subscribers. Is that what you were pointing to? Hey, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Rap Girl and Angel.
Yes.
You guys have been here since the start.
Yeah, way to go, guys.
We do read the comments.
We do, yes.
It's just a busy conversation.
Mm-hmm. Do you have the chat up over there, Kelly?
I didn't figure out how to do it, so I haven't done it, which I'm bummed out. So I'm glad you guys are bringing out the names of who is actually joining us, because I don't know how to do it. Sorry, guys. I'm a noob. I'm a noob.
It's all right.
It's all right.
You'll learn.
Basically, Kayla tells me how to do all this stuff. I don't figure it out on my own.
This is a really cute short story. You guys can check out more for yourself later that I just remember when you were talking about this. Is a guy who actually started the Colgate company, the industry. When he first started out, him and his family were very humble. And from the beginning, he decided that when he collected all their money and managed to buy, I think, the factory, he made a commitment from the beginning that he would always put some money aside from what they were producing for God, and created a whole other account. So he kept doing that, and that commitment has obviously allowed the business to flourish. So like one really big example that we are not been aware of is something like Colgate. You know, like people that start businesses and trust God with everything, you know, even business or personally, there's so much blessing that comes from that. God definitely sees your commitment with him. Yeah.
Wow. I had no idea about that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. It's always good to hear stuff like that. So I guess we should cover real quick here, maybe for some, what tithing is.
Right.
Even some people might not even know exactly what tithing is.
What's the language origin?
The language origin? Kelly might have that in her notes.
Not this time. Sorry.
I forget.
Okay.
Does it mean like a tenth or something in whatever language origin?
I have no idea.
It was in the video.
I was sleeping at that part. So yeah. Do you want to explain a little about what tithing is, Kelly, or you want me to go ahead and give a short answer?
I don't know what you have in mind, but when we pull up the definition of tithing, even on my phone, like the definition that's usually understood is this: it's that 1/10 of the annual produce of earnings, formerly taken as a tax for the support of the church. So usually it's believed to be the 10% of what you made or what you received. That's like usually the overall used term in churches or understanding in churches. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't.
No, good, perfect. That's exactly what I was going for. Is it the last 10% or the middle 10%?
Good question. Yes, that's very good. And I love that you checked out this guy because he definitely talks about it. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. So do you want to answer that?
You can. I've been speaking. Go ahead. I'll let you.
But you're the special guest. No, it's the first 10%, the first fruit.
Yes.
And I don't have much to say about that, although it's a very important point. So if you have more to add to that, go ahead.
I do. Okay, so in Exodus 23:19, hold on, series. Okay, and it says, "The first of the first fruit of your land you shall bring into the house of the Lord your God." So I think in so many different verses, God always referred to it as the first. He doesn't say just like first. I mean, this is the 10%. Like, don't give it to me eventually. Don't give it to me after you've paid all your bills and eventually you took out the 10% of the total. He's like, the first thing you do, give me that piece. Give me that 10% first. Yeah, and the author really puts it this way. He says, is it really an act of faith to give 10% after all your other bills are paid? No, are you really? Because the whole heart of this is in the honoring and believing that God will take care of you. So if you're doing it after you pay all your bills, that kind of takes away from the whole perspective, the whole point of doing this in the first place, of trusting God and honoring Him first, I think.
Yeah, the first 10% is like doing that first. It gives full trust. It shows that you've got full trust in what God is going to do. Other than that, like after you've done something else, it's kind of like, yeah, maybe I trust God. Maybe He might take care of me, but I'm really scared about my bills right now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Bringing that faith point up is a fantastic point. I'm glad that you put that out there. There's so many different like Bible subjects that tie back to faith, and I think it's because it's just like a reoccurring theme in the Bible, like old and new. You just see it over and over again. Is these massive problems with faith, and it always ends up hurting the people who don't have the faith. And then as soon as that faith is practiced, just like look in the New Testament at all the times where people had this tremendous faith in Jesus, they're immediately healed, and He acknowledges their amazing faith. Or how many times, even the people who were closest to Jesus didn't have faith and were, sinking or whatever else. And it's the same with your money. You want to be successful, you got to have that faith. Part of that faith is that first 10%. It shows your priority, shows your belief, everything. So yeah, that's a fantastic point. Okay.
For the meaty one,
I have a large verse here.
Yes.
I'm not sure. I don't even know without reading it what exactly it was, because I did this last night. So you want to talk about something while I check the context of this out?
just go for the read.
Just go for the read.
Okay.
Okay.
I can speak if you want me to for another time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I think I have here kind of like 3 different stages of. The first verse is Leviticus 27:30, and it says, "Any tithe of the land, from the grain of the land or from the fruit of the trees, belongs to the Lord. It is holy to the Lord." And Sam, you can jump in anytime, but I think this is really good point, because God is really saying it is mine from the beginning. He's again hitting that point, saying that the fruit that you have is mine. It belongs to me. It is holy. So return it to me. And it's that idea again that you're not really giving to God, you're really returning to God, because it already belongs to Him.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So then the second example I had was in Malachi 3:8-9, which it says, maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but it says, "Can a person rob God? You indeed are robbing me, but you say, how are we robbing you? In tithes and contributions. You are bound for judgment because you're robbing me. This whole nation is guilty." So, I think a good point of this verse is saying people can, when they don't give back to God in a way, you are robbing God, but that shouldn't be the heart of what you're doing, because the heart of giving is returning to God out of love. But God definitely sees that, and He sees your commitment with Him and your decision to not have a commitment with Him. He also sees that as well. He's not obviously. I don't think that you're going to be punished, but you're definitely not going to receive those blessings when you don't. And I think it's really great here.
Right. It's kind of like if you were talking to God face to face, like the all power of the universe, and He asked you, like, "Hey, can you give this like tiny portion? Can you give this 10% for me, please?" Like
It's like math.
Do you think, yeah, would you really just be like, nah, bruh, like, I'm not going to do it? Like, I don't think anyone would say that.
Like, Jesus, I want to, but there's this really cute pair of shoes that I want to get.
Right.
You understand.
Right.
Or like, no, that's in the Old Testament.
Right,
But-
yeah, which we drop in like, oh, that's like, that doesn't matter anymore. Yeah, because that's Old Testament, so it's not relevant.
Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of which leads me into my next point that I have next verse, but I want to throw out there. You mentioned, I think, Malachi 3, 8, and 9.
Yes.
My big meaty verse was Malachi 3, 6 through 12. I'm not going to read it right now, but feel free in the comments to read that and check and see an example of some of this in action. And then Hebrews in the chat here, Hebrews 11, 6 is getting thrown out there in relating to our discussion of faith a few minutes ago. So feel free to check that out also if you're watching. But I am going to say, because a lot of times one of the big subjects, and I don't want to linger on this too much, but a lot of times, and there are a lot of weird discussions or complicated things that the more you research it, the more it makes sense, but that's not what this video is about. We're not going to go into it too much regarding Old and New Testament and what to follow and whatnot and all that stuff, complications and stuff like that. And so one of the arguments that a lot of people make about tithing is that we're saved by grace. That's Old Testament stuff. We don't need to do it anymore. I think the more that you look at the Bible, the more that it is clear that there's a very strong theme of giving. It seems kind of silly to argue this, because why would you want to? And if you're at that place where you really want to argue against giving, like that, in my eyes, is an indication of like your heart, like a red flag about your heart, a concern. Anyways, but with that being said, I have a verse here. What if Jesus himself in the New Testament, in the video he says in red letters, were to suggest that we ought to tithe? And if you look at Matthew 23:23, this is English Standard Version, it says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you tithe mint and dill and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faithfulness. These you ought to have done without neglecting the others." So no matter which way you look at that verse, when he says with these you ought to have done, whether or not he's talking about tithing or whether or not he's talking about justice and mercy and faithfulness, he says you ought to have done both. And he's kind of touching on a heart issue there. And there is more to that than just what we're getting into, but we're kind of just extracting a little point there that tithing is mentioned right there by Jesus, and it's said that you should be doing this, also doing all of this. So I thought that was kind of an interesting little snippet there.
I think it's always really interesting, and I feel like this is such a big discussion because it's not something that we can just like throw in 1 second and boom, that's the end of this. So again, like if you guys want to go deep into this, go ahead. I tell you to go deep into it and read about it. Again, that book we mentioned in the beginning, it's such a good one, and if you weren't here for it, it's called The Blessed Life by Robert Morris, and it's this book right here, and it's really amazing and putting everything in really great perspective. But to say that it's kind of irrelevant because it's in the Old Testament, it's kind of almost like dismissing everything else that God talks to us and teaches us in the Old Testament. The principles of like obeying your parents and God being first, like that was also in the Old Testament. We're not going to just throw those things aside. So I think that we have to really trust God and just know that God wants to continue committing to Him, especially because the principle still applies of trusting Him with the first that we are provided with, whether that's animals because we're farmers or because it's money because now we're living in this time period. So, it's ageless.
Yeah, very good. And I'm really excited to see this in the chat right now. There's just like a million
Bible verses getting thrown out there. And because this is a Bible study hangout, and because you viewers are hanging out with us, I'm going to point out a few of these. Deuteronomy 15:10, give generously to him, and do so without a grudging heart. Then because of this, the Lord your God will bless you in all your work and in everything you put your hand to. Whoa.
Amen. Who did that one? Who put
Jeremiah. He's my bro. He's
Jeremiah,
always been good.
You rock. That's a really good one.
Yeah, and then
he's throwing out all the good ones.
Yeah, he's throwing out a lot of good ones. Deuteronomy 16:17, every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord your God, which he has given you. Proverbs 21:26, the righteous gives and does not hold back. Proverbs 3:27, do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in your power to do it. Proverbs 28:27, he who gives to the poor will never want, but he who shuts his eyes will have many curses. So, bam, you really
fire.
Yeah, good job.
Right, seriously.
Got like a streak going there. That's awesome.
Hashtag chat MVP.
Yeah, chat MVP. We should start awarding chat MVP. Maybe not, but cool. So thank you for contributing, and thanks all you guys. You're all saying great stuff in there, and I can't wait to look at it in more detail. So, but yeah, thanks for throwing out those Bible verses.
Oh yeah,
those are great. And with that, I am at the end of my notes, but if you have more you would like to discuss, Kelly, I'd be happy to hear what you have to say.
I did have like an example that was brought to my attention with the story of Cain and Abel, which we all have heard a million times, but I never really understood it until after I learned this principle and I was able to look back. So in Genesis 4 verses 3-5, it says, at the designated time, Cain brought some of the fruit of the ground for an offering to the Lord. But Abel brought some of the firstborn of his flock, even the fattest of them. And the Lord was pleased with Abel and his offering, but with Cain and his offering, he was not pleased. And usually I tend to overlook this, but now that I know this, I notice that it says that Cain brought some of the fruit of the ground. Well, Abel was bringing, one of the firstborns. He was bringing, actually says, some of the firstborn of his flock, even the fattest of them. So he was not only bringing, the first piece of what he was receiving, but he was bringing the best of the best. So I think this is really cool because it really ties in with that principle of, giving your very best first to God and eventually giving it to God, which is, I think, what Cain and Abel sort of do and represent here for us. So this is kind of neat because I never noticed that before until I learned this. Yeah.
I would assume that there's a lot of people that probably have never heard that, and that's really interesting, and I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm not even sure I ever heard it said in quite that way. So yeah, that's a really good point. Thanks for bringing that up.
No, yeah.
Right, no problem.
Yep. So, anything else over there, Kelly?
Yeah, the last thing that I had on my notes, I'm pretty sure, and I had like 2 pages of notes, was that, and I don't know how to really fit this, but so guys, help me out here. But I also heard this said in the book when the author was talking about it that Jesus himself was God's firstborn, and in a way, he was a tithing. And it says in John 1:29, behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. So Jesus really was in a way God's tithing to save us, and his offering for us. And the cool thing about this that I think about it is that we're supposed to be little Christs walking around on earth and being more like him and doing the things that he has done. So in a way that Jesus was like a tithing, we're supposed to also be tithing with God, continuing that commitment to be tithing and expanding the kingdom of God to save other lives as well and bring other people to Jesus. So I don't know if you ever thought about it that way. The author brought this up and I thought it was kind of interesting, so I wanted to mention it. It's definitely something that is interesting because he says that God didn't wait to see if we would first change before he sent his tithing, his firstborn, he just did that first. That was his way of kind of setting the example by doing that as well.
That's really cool. I like that.
That is cool. Yeah,
Right.
that's awesome. He talks, we didn't get quite that far. I think that was the next one. But in the sermon series, but that was, I think, sermon 5. And we went through 1 through 4 last night. So I had heard a little bit about that before. And yeah, it is really interesting and really a new way to think about it and a cool way to think about it.
Definitely.
So, yeah, grab that book if you.
And you can check out the
Here's the book.
series.
Check out the series. Yeah, check out the series if you want to watch videos. It's also worth noting, it's pretty clear and pretty obvious. But in case that it's not, we are not like endorsed or partnered with Robert Morris.
Not at all.
The only way we're partnered with him is that we're brothers and sisters to him in Christ, and we have a similar mission, and we see a great resource, a great tool, a great opportunity to learn here. And so we're trying to present it to you guys who maybe haven't heard of it, and maybe a lot of you have, but hopefully this is good review or good thought-provoking anyways. So I think with that, we'll wrap it up unless you have anything, either of you have anything else you want to throw out there. I'm not trying to cut anybody off.
The only thing I want to say is that if any of you guys who are watching know any other sources, like resources in books or anything at all that you know that really explains this in a really great way, make sure that you mention it. This is the only one that I know that really put in a perspective that I was able to understand and enjoy the topic. And it was given to me by my church. So if you guys know anything, throw it out there. I would love to check it out and see for myself. So definitely be doing that.
Yeah, all sorts of suggestions. Put as much as you can in the comments to help us, because we like maybe a misconception that goes around, like me and Sam and Kelly, we're probably growing in our relationship with God.
Yeah.
Like more than you guys can understand from doing this YouTube stuff. We learn from you guys too. Your comments matter to us. In looking at these topics, it helps us to grow. So yeah, we're not speaking because we're professionals or any better than anybody else. And you should always take what the Bible says and what God says, not what we have to say. But your contributions to us, I genuinely mean this, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of these other two wonderful guests.
Absolutely.
When I say your contributions and your voice is so helpful and so meaningful to us, and we really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So. We're definitely in this together, growing together as daughters and sons of God. So anything you guys want to share to strengthen us, we're definitely open to it. Yeah,
and growing that community, and it's awesome. And speaking of growing that community, I am so pleased that these Bible study hangouts have been going really good, and it has opened doors to different channels and different communities. It's been kind of bridging gaps between those communities. And I've had people come from those channels and check this out, and I've had people say, I'm subscribed to both, and this is so exciting. And other channels, we've had Far Away Distance and Once Upon a Church, and just seeing those communities grow between us. Yeah, it's so cool. It's so fun, and seeing those friendships grow. Maybe sometime we should do a super hangout with everybody.
Can we? Is that possible? Have everyone here?
That would be so cool.
Totally do it.
Throw out ideas in the comments for a subject for that. Just YouTube Bible study Avengers. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But yeah, with that being said, if you haven't done so already, please do yourself a favor and go subscribe to Kelly's channel. Don't get thrown off by Christian girl vlogs, because I get so much enjoyment and so much out of it. Sometimes I think to myself, should I be here? But
I'm so sorry about that, you guys.
No, you don't need to apologize. I'm just saying, your channel is for a broad audience, and you might have a selected demographic there, but if you're a guy on my channel or whatever, go check her channel out for yourself. It's worth it. You will not regret it.
Oh, thank you, Caleb.
Yeah, no problem.
I hear this so much of people, like especially young men and boys saying like, I actually love it, but I always feel like I'm not supposed to be watching. And I'm like, no, you are. I think when I started it, I never expected guys to be interested in what I was talking about. And it's just really awesome to see so many, girls and guys coming in and enjoying what I'm talking about and joining me and growing with me. So it's really cool. So if you guys are watching this, definitely check it out, because if you like it, that would be fantastic. And I would love to get to know you guys and your ladies out there. So
yeah. Yes. Tell me, has the Christian Girl Vlogs portion of your banner shrunk at all over time? Thinking about that, have you let's put that a little small, or is that stay the same?
I've been so tempted at times to take that away. Like, can I just will they not notice if I take that out of there? But I'm like, but I put it everywhere and everyone knows it now. I'm like, just leave it. I just have to keep explaining myself over and over again.
Yeah.
So
maybe just put a sub point, and everyone else also.
Cross out girl, right? Cross out.
Christian everyone vlog. Yeah, we might be on. This might be the start of a new era for Kelly up here.
Yes. Let it be the barked point, you guys.
All right. Well, okay. We had a lot of fun doing this. Thank you for joining us, Kelly. Thank you for joining me and everything I'm doing for the next 3 months, Sam. But he's visiting from Arizona, so we're going to the gym, and since I work at a homeless shelter, he's able to volunteer, so he comes to work with me. So we're pretty much inseparable for the next couple months. But it's awesome. Yeah, it's cool.
It was great meeting you, Sam. Thank you, and
yeah,
thank you
it's
so much.
wonderful to meet you. This was a blast. We'll do it again.
Yeah,
and
we don't have to.
Yes, for sure. And thank you for letting me be a part of this. I was so happy and honored when you guys invited me. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you for coming.
We're honored too. And definitely go over to her channel and leave her comments begging her to have me on her channel. Right?
Yes, we will do it. Yes, it's guaranteed.
Okay. All right. Okay, guys. Well, we love you. We're praying for you. Thank you for joining us for this Bible study hangout. Leave comments with other subjects or whatever you want to talk about. And hopefully we'll see you around here next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.